morning 7, which is crazy. I haven't even thought about it yet, but it'll be
I
good.
know.
It'll be
I
really good.
just
There's
did the
lots of good stuff.
morning
Dude,
shift.
we're on the air all the time. It's great. We need to start a channel. I want my channel so we could all be on the same channels. People can see us all in one place at one time. I think it'll work. Some good stories today as well. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Trump Attorney Tracker. It's nice to see Olga Lautman. We're both just expressing to each other how busy these days are and how much news there is and how complicated these stories are and how tiring it all is. And I'm sure you feel the same way at home, but thank you for taking the time to join us today on the Trump Attorney Tracker. Olga, how are you doing today?
Well, overwhelmed as always, but
Yeah.
we keep going. What can we do?
We got to keep at it. It's we are beginning to see cracks in MAGA, which is such a interesting thing. I should mention Candace Owens, of all people, featured an interview clip of mine with Ari Ben Menashe on her show yesterday. And I was actually in agreement with everything she was saying. I was like, oh, there you go. There is actually a way to link the I'm not saying I'm on the left, but certainly there's definitely a way to connect the anti-Trump and the pro-Trump world together, and it's around Jeffrey Epstein. So I think everyone agrees on
I
that.
was just literally laughing because right before I sent a clip of the Nazi, what's his name, Fuentes.
Mhm.
And I was like, what in the hell? Every word that he said made sense. That Trump is a scam artist, that this
Right.
MAGA movement is a scam, and that, again, this is a Nazi. But he literally, and he even said, oh, the liberals were right when they called out this MAGA movement and that it's all a big con. I mean, I was like, what in the hell? How?
It's amazing. We're all, I agreed with Tucker Carlson, something he was reporting on the other day about Jeffrey Epstein. Now Candace Owens, now Nick Fuentes. It's true. We were right all along, but it's good to see that
But
they're
they're
coming
doing
along.
it for their reasons. I mean, these are very toxic, garbage
Oh,
people. But
yes.
it's fascinating how somehow there's
You
some
know,
kind of unity in thought.
look, if they're united against this current administration and about restoring democracy, then that's good. You will be
Yeah,
united with them on that front. But everything else they've done up to now is certainly not
yeah.
revealing of that. So it's day 178 of the Trump administration, and we're tracking the most significant authoritarian developments of the last 24 hours, as captured by Olga Lautman on her Trump Attorney Tracker. And we begin today at the Department of Justice, where Trump's Justice Department is demanding voters' rolls from states and pressuring them to allow federal inspections of voting machines, sparking alarm across party lines. In Colorado, Clerks reports that a Trump-connected operative linked to Stephen Miller is contacting counties about federal access to voting machines. What? Something election law explicitly forbids. Separately, the DOJ has quietly requested full voter files from at least 9 states as part of Trump's broader efforts to centralize election control. This is very worrying stuff.
Just before I get in this, no, it's not the Proud Boys Fuentes. It's the Nick Fuentes,
Nick
who's the
Fuentes, yeah.
Nazi.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Fuentes. And someone on our chat right now is her name, I believe, is Fuentes. And no, she made it clear no relation to
No
any of these,
relationship to her.
to any of
So
these Fuentes. So yeah, no, this is exactly where we knew they were going. In March, Trump signed an executive order to dismantle the election infrastructure. And now you see them really, going after states for the voter rolls and also dismantling cybersecurity protections for states to prevent foreign actors from attacking elections. And this, I mean, really should set off alarm bells for everyone. I do believe, and I will keep saying it because I've seen it in other parts of the world where, it's much easier to pull off election theft. I do believe that if enough people vote and enough people are armed with this information and push back, that we will be able to, stop this and stop it in time for 2026. But it's a matter of everyone needs to know, one, what is happening
Hmm.
and which our media is failing at, because Washington Post reported this. I have yet to see it on CNN or MSNBC. I mean, this is, a
Yeah,
problem.
this is where independent media becomes so important, and why everyone watching right now who is seeing this report, share it, use that little square button with that arrow, make sure it's shared in your networks, share it with your friends. Every state is running their own elections. That's the way it should be. But what the Trump administration has done is start to infiltrate every state infrastructure. They've also got these, I would say, very highly suspicious activities with Palantir and Starlink involving cell phone networks that can penetrate for electronic voting machines. So what we need is a real awareness of the fact that Republicans are trying, or at least the Trump administration is trying, to really interfere in the state-run elections, and that needs to be stopped at every level. At the same time, we need another renewed focus on these electronic voting machines, where we know that the people who are doing the updates, the encrypted updates to these electronic voting machines, were not legit. And they clearly have not provided enough public information as to what they were updating in those electronic voting machines in the months leading up to the last election. So we know that the entire infrastructure of voting needs to be re-examined. There's the Electoral Commission, which seems to be somewhat corrupt. Then that's on a federal basis. And then it's clear that what Stephen Miller is doing on a state-by-state basis is trying to infiltrate these states, counties. And we really have to push back, and awareness is the thing, as you point out, Olga. The more people know about it on a state-by-state level, the more noise you can make to your local state representatives and to your local state administrators of the elections. And that way we can push back from the federal interference in the elections.
And at the same time, we need an overwhelming amount of people
Mm.
to come out to vote. The
Yeah.
more people who vote, the more it can, stop any attempts of rigging the system. And I'm
Mm.
telling you, in Russia, where elections are predetermined. How many times have I posted about Russia actually, by accident, putting out the election results like
The real
3, 4
results.
days before election
Yeah.
even
No.
started? But my one thing is, one, we need to make a lot of noise about this, and two, look, the states that will carry out unlawful orders are the red states, the
Mm.
MAGA states. Some place like New York, Pennsylvania, swing states and states that are Democratic, clearly they're going to, make sure that their elections are safeguarded and do everything they can. But it's a matter that we need to keep pushing our local representatives. And even in Pennsylvania and Michigan, which are swing states and have pockets of MAGA, we need to make sure that the attorneys generals are involved and that the election people are involved and that they make sure everything is safeguarded.
And even in some of these swing states where there are red pockets, New York is a perfect example. Last time when it flipped so many of those seats to MAGA in sort of suburban New York State. That's another thing that people really need to watch for, is that there's these pockets where you can have real manipulation on a county by county basis, and people really need
But
to address
they
it.
are upstate New York has always been.
It's always been a little bit red,
Yeah,
a little bit.
they've always, because I mean, New York is considered a Democratic state, but frankly, the Democratic part of the state is centralized in the
Right,
four
right.
boroughs, not my borough. My borough is very red. It has always been
Yeah,
Republican. So, all the upstate New York states, for the most part, upstate New York towns
yeah.
have always been and voted for red. Yes, Staten Island, I'm in MAGAville.
Me.
Have front row seats to what MAGA is. They've always been red, and I mean, for the most part, where you get the Democratic strongholds are Albany, and then downstate, which is New York City. And that
Yeah.
overwhelms because the majority of the population is here, not in, upstate New York and like the small towns and whatnot. So,
And next election, of course, will affect the House. So that's why these counties matter so much on a county by county basis. Let's move to our second story. 3 Democratic senators are sounding alarms over Trump's new national citizenship verification system. The Department of Homeland Security tool links immigration and social security data and is being quietly offered to state election officials without public transparency. Senators warn the system could wrongly flag eligible citizens and suppress votes, creating a backdoor method for voter intimidation through the federal database. Explain how this will happen. Why are they so concerned about the suppression of votes?
Well, I mean, they want to rig the election, so they're going to try between gerrymandering. I mean, we saw Trump say in Texas very clearly, I just need 5 seats.
Mm.
So we're going to redraw the maps. Um, that's it. I
Just
mean,
need a few more seats. Give me 5 more seats.
yeah, and that's
What's this
it.
democracy thing? I'll just negotiate with
Exactly.
you.
But and now what they're going to do is try to find any discrepancies with the naturalized citizens, which frankly are people like me. Again, this is all preventable. Knowledge is key because I mean I obsessively since 2016 and knowing these shenanigans, I obsessively check New York State to make sure I'm not kicked off the voter roll, that I'm current, and there are steps that can be taken to make sure that you are on. And if you find out you were kicked off the voter rolls, you need to immediately do everything to reinstate yourself and keep literally checking. I mean, this is everything is online these days. And so you can keep checking and making sure up to the last day before election that you are able to vote. But this is what they're doing there. And this is why, actually, as horrific as all of this is, they haven't found the structural system to rig elections. This is why you see them going for using old tactics of voter roll gerrymandering, because if they had, some kind of a complex system to try to, from behind, rig the election, they wouldn't be going through all of this. They would have
Although
made every.
they're
Mhm.
doing both, I think. I mean, I think there's clearly evidence that they're experimenting with using Starlink and Palantir with all sorts of things with electronic voting machines. I don't know if they got there. I don't think they got there, but
No,
they're working on that. And so they're trying both. I think they're doing every path they can to suppress votes because they just need to move at 2 or 3%, and then you've got a victory. In most of these ridings, that's why there'll be third-party candidates in a lot of places that aren't real, true third-party candidates for the same reason. It's
that's
just
the
this.
same thing that's been happening. And that's why I say, as horrific as all of this is, if they had elections fully secure, they wouldn't be taking these steps and everybody would go about their business and then, find out, wake up and like, wait a minute, we thought Democrats are ahead in each race by X amount and suddenly Republicans win. The fact they're taking these steps, and the fact that media is doing a good job, print media, not cable
Mm,
networks,
mm,
print media is doing a good job to alert us. That means that they are not confident and they don't have the tools yet to shift those 2-3%.
yeah.
And they will continue using this. Is what Joe Stein's job was. I mean, this goes back for decades in U.S. where they use third-party candidates to swing a race. So, I mean, again, knowledge is power. Share with everyone. Tell them take steps yourself. Make sure you're registered to vote. I'll be here reminding everyone next year. you know, make sure keep
And start working
checking.
today. I mean, you
Yeah,
find the representatives you're behind, get behind them, and make sure that they have every single vote in your riding so they can get it through into a victory. Our third story: Justice Department considering prosecuting Minnesota judges and defense lawyers for requesting virtual court hearings to prevent ICE arrests. Internal emails and legal discussions have sparked an FBI probe, though no charges have been filed yet. This obviously is unbelievable that you can't even have virtual ICE hearings to avoid, immigration hearings to avoid ICE capture. They're now making that into a crime. The judges are committing a crime by having virtual hearings. That's unbelievable.
I mean, as Trump is dismantling the election infrastructure, he's also attempting to, dismantle judiciary to gain full capture of it. And I mean, this is just one of those other egregious things that he's doing. Luckily, there have been no arrests besides Judge Dugan, who got arrested. And there was another judge, I believe. Texas or Arizona,
Yeah,
who was arrested. But for the most part, you see where their thinking is. I mean, this is, you see which path they're going to go down. And this is not on our news story, but can I take a minute to cover this because
yeah,
I
of course.
covered it on my morning show on Pops Americana. The Russian today passed. It's been happening during the week, going through different readings, and the Russians passed a law to basically at this point, it's hand out fines, but it's going to obviously go to jailing for reading extremist content online. So basically, if you're tapping into any independent media, which Russia, you have a Russian journalist who fled Russia and still like the Insider, Medusa, and you have several outlets with
Yeah,
journalists still reporting. And Novaya Gazeta is an old one. Um, well, that will become a crime. So you cannot read this
can't
material.
read material that is
No,
independent. Oh wow, that's
no.
incredible.
And you can't read any or access any LGBTQ plus sites. So basically, extremist is a very vague term. I mean,
Yeah,
literally, it could be Washington Post is extremist
yeah,
or BBC. But the reason I want to bring this up is with Trump creating this surveillance system in the U.S. He had been using, and with the tracker and with our discussions, I've been documenting how he's using Russia's tactics,
hmm,
to try to silence opposition, to try to silence media, between weaponizing our federal agencies. And I just wanted to bring this up because this is another tactic that I am sure they're not going to be too far behind.
yeah,
Because what took
exactly.
Putin decades to put this together, this real crackdown. Um, and it came in waves, it's taking Trump. I mean, we literally are like in year 16 of Russia versus the 6 months here in Trump, if you, you know,
Yeah.
compare them.
And it's, they've got the surveillance system that's certainly looking at what people are posting. It's not, doesn't take much of imagination to figure out that they can also see what you're reading on your social
Mhm.
media. So, it's clear that they can gather that information. They haven't used it yet in any way, but they must be
It's just
capable of
something
it.
to put on the
Yeah.
radar
And of course,
at
that's
this
a
point.
ridiculous, the First Amendment violation. You can't imagine a bigger one. The DOJ abruptly fired Maureen Comey. I was thinking about Maureen Comey the other day, actually. I was like, I wonder if she's still around because they were going after her
Wow.
dad, right? But Maureen Comey, the daughter of the former FBI director, James Comey, who was the lead prosecutor in Ghislaine Maxwell's case, has been fired. Comey also handled parts of the Epstein and Sean Diddy Combs cases. No reason was given for her dismissal, but it follows Trump's sustained attack on DOJ officials and growing MAGA anger over the withheld Epstein files. It is interesting they're letting her go. She has a lot more freedom now to talk about what was going on inside if she's not an employee there. So I wonder if she'll start talking to the media. And if she wants to come on our show, we'll be happy to have her.
Welcome to the resistance.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Um, no, it's interesting because I think she got fired right now, specifically because Trump wanted to throw red meat, Comey, Epstein. Trump
Hmm.
has, mangled all of this that it's Comey who created the Epstein files, which is the furthest thing from the truth. And here throwing a Comey, who actually did prosecute parts of Epstein case. She was in the lead prosecutor on it, but worked on it, and who did handle the Maxwell case.
Mm.
It's fascinating that you have him doing this. But like you say, I am, wondering if it will, fire back because she frankly can, she's no longer employed and no longer bound by
She'll be
any
doing
of
a
the
60
rules of.
Minutes interview before we know it, or some other news magazine before we know it. I'd be delighted to hear from Comey. I'd really want to hear as much information as they have on Epstein. She would know what they have in great detail, and certainly.
She's
Sorry.
too ethical. She's too ethical
Mm,
to reveal details,
mm,
but she can discuss maybe the pressure inside the
yeah,
Department of Justice not to reveal the files.
exactly.
Because I don't think she's one who's going to really go on TV and start giving us a client list. And
No, the client list is under judge orders to be suppressed, but you can give us a general idea of what was going on within that we already have, but just an extended idea of what they've learned in the bigger investigation. Because Ghislaine Maxwell's investigation was pretty narrow at the end of the day. It involved just around Giffrey, if I'm not mistaken, but there's so many others that are involved in all of that. It's amazing that Ghislaine has kept so quiet throughout all of this. I'm waiting to hear when she.
her family reached out. They are looking for a pardon in exchange for
Yeah,
her
Supreme Court.
discussing.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll see. No, she reached out to Congress, her family, and they really want a pardon. Which again, at this point, listening to her testimony with a pardon on the line, would obviously, I wouldn't put too much into
She's
it.
not likely to get it, but if she is, she's not likely to get it. Let's be honest. But I'd be interested to hear what she has to say,
Please,
regardless.
Trump, give her a pardon. I want to see
Mm.
that his face will go wild, even
I
more wild. No,
I
but
have so many questions
seriously,
for Ghislaine Maxwell. I could probably fill an entire hour just some questions. Speaking of which, tonight at 7 p.m., you and I are doing a special report on Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to be doing something it's going to be revelationary to people. We are going to take a look at his entire intelligence network as we can piece together from public information. I've originally reported about his Israeli ties. Um, We'll go into that in greater detail today, but we'll also look at his Russian ties today for the first time on The Secret Life of Jeffrey Epstein and see how these two intelligence operations coordinate with each other. It's really interesting. The Israeli former prime minister, Naftali Bennett, came out today saying there's no ways Epstein worked for Mossad and no ways Ghislaine Maxwell worked for Mossad. And of course, he is completely correct. They didn't work for Mossad. They worked for Israeli military intelligence, Amman. And that's the semantics play that the Israelis are choosing to play right now with the story. By all accounts, he worked for Amman and not Mossad, which is an interesting distinction that they're making. So that's at 7 p.m. tonight on Substack. Everyone should check it out. It's going to be a really, really interesting hour, and I'm looking forward to getting your notes. I've got tons of my own, and we'll compare and see what we can find.
and speaking of, no, I was kidding with the pardoning. No, she needs
Yeah.
to sit in
Yeah.
jail for the rest of her life. But I could imagine if Trump pardoned her, what that would cause within his base. But speaking of Israeli, the pull and push between Israeli and Russian intelligence, you remember I've been saying that I think since Iran that Trump is being yanked between both.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, Alexander Dugin, the sociopath fascist, wrote an article basically accusing the Israeli intelligence of controlling U.S. policy, foreign policy. So I mean, with the Russians, they project everything they're thinking.
Yeah.
This is where Trump gets it. And it's interesting that they're in that same mind frame. He just released it yesterday. And it's interesting they're in the same mind frame of, that that they're upset they are, losing full control over
Mm.
Trump as the Israelis are pulling him in their corner.
That's why Jeffrey Epstein is such an interesting case study, because Jeffrey Epstein really had connections to both. And the fact that they're having a turf war over him is really interesting because he has information on both sides, or had information on both sides. But it is a symbolic thing almost, but it's not really symbolic. It's actually it originated out of Maxwell and Iran-Contra, also involving Russia and Israel. It evolved into Epstein, also involving Russia and Israel, and here we are today dealing with Trump involving Russia and Israel again. So it's not surprising that this has happened, but it's the same storyline and often the same characters that keep showing up time and time
And
again.
let's not forget Netanyahu used to, have sleepovers at Kushner's house.
Yep,
So hey, he's very close with the family. Trump at times, has fought with Netanyahu, but the Kushner family is very close for
they're
decades.
very,
Okay.
very, very close
Mm-hmm.
to the Netanyahu's, as is Trump. I mean, regardless of his feelings about Jews, which seems to be sometimes anti-Semitic, his affiliation with Bibi is very, very strong.
I
Bibi's
mean,
dad used to hang out with his father. Sorry, Bibi used to hang out with his father in Brooklyn, your neck of the woods, when Trump was still younger. That Bibi used to visit the older Trump, so that goes back generations.
mhm.
Um, so 7 p.m. tonight, no one miss it. Substack. It's the only place you're going to be able to get this kind of coverage and information. We'll see you then. Our final story examines how many militant Christian nationalist churches from Idaho, um, how a militant Christian nationalist church from Idaho, Christkirk, has launched a new branch in Washington, D.C., with backing from Pete Hegseth and other Trump-aligned officials. I don't even know how to say this. Tied to controversial preacher Doug Wilson, the church promotes a theocratic vision that explicitly rejects democracy, LGBTQ plus rights, and secular government. I know this guy. I've seen this Doug Wilson. He's a crackpot if there ever has been one, who's very, very anti-LGBTQ. But now it seems that so is Pete Hegseth, and they're launching a church.
Yeah, so they're moving and I mean this just shows you the path that this regime is heading with these, horrific, gross influences of
Mm.
these theocratic, like militant regimes. I mean, this organization, I've come across it before, reminds me really of what happened in Russia, where you have these militant paramilitary groups tied to the Orthodox Church carrying out assassinations and various operations across the world. And this is exactly this. And in this case, I mean, they're very anti-democratic. Obviously, like you said, anti LGBTQ plus. Um the fact that they're so entangled with the government is
Yeah,
freaky. I mean,
reminds me of
I'm
Opus
shocked he
Dei.
yeah.
Remember, Opus
Yeah.
Dei's
Oh,
incursion was also through Washington. They launched a big church in Washington, D.C., and started getting all
I
these
remember.
officials. So,
I actually did a very deep dive also on Open Day and Hanson and his wife Bonnie, her family, because they opened the first part of the Opus Day Church in Chicago.
right.
Her family were the original people, and Opus Day was the church in late 1970s. Hanson was working for GRU and Russia's military intelligence, and his wife Bonnie caught him with as passing secrets to the Soviets, and she freaked out, took him to Opus Day, like to the church.
Yeah.
He um confessed his sins that he's working for the Soviets, treason. And the Opus Day priest said, okay, well, you need to go and report what is happening,
Yeah.
to authorities. He was at the time FBI, go report what you're doing. And he said, okay, I'm going to go report it. And then Opus Day, someone from the church called back because her family were like the main people in the
Yeah.
US. And her family called back. And the church called back and told him actually come back in, pay whatever money you collected from the Soviets. Now, mind you, this is treason. He was
Mm.
passing
State secrets.
FBI state secrets to the Russians. Um, they told him whatever money you have donated to charity, say Hail Marys, as if
Yeah.
that forgives state secrets, and that's it. As a result, then he took a break for a few years and ended up then going to work for KGB, resulting in the informants that we had in the Soviet Union and here who were providing us information being executed because he handed them a
Mm.
list of who was working. So yeah, Opus
Did he work
Day
for
is
Bill Barr as well? Hanson, was that before or after he worked for Bill Barr?
Hanson's brother-in-law,
Brother worked for
who is
that's right.
in the Vatican right now.
Hmm.
He was Bill Barr's speechwriter in
Yeah,
'91,
all in
and
the
Bill Barr
family.
promoted Hanson to, like, he pulled him from New York because he was head of like counterintelligence
Hmm.
in New York, focusing on the Soviet UN mission and Soviet KGB operations in New York. Had he then got promoted and pulled back to DC and ended up getting elevated to see the whole Russia unit to give him even more information.
Wow.
Hmm.
So corrupt. Olga, everything that's in your brain is an absolute national treasure and needs to be
My
preserved
poor
forever,
brain.
downloaded somehow. It's so, it really is. Everything, it's so great to have all this information that you have stored away in there. So much great research over the years.
It's like a
So,
Wikipedia in here. I need to
it
cleanse
is
it
like a
and actually.
Wikipedia. I'm telling you, it's a national treasure. So you ever should check out the Trump tyranny tracker, Olga's incredible daily tracking of the authoritarian creep that's happening in America. Also, Unmasking Russia, her other great Substack, which has a terrific story this week, which is all about how citizens need to be wary that what's happening to immigrants now is going to happen to them. And you can also check out narrative.org, NARATIV.org, for a lot of Jeffrey Epstein coverage this week as we resurrect a series I did 6 years ago, The Secret Life of Jeffrey Epstein, and surrounded with a whole lot of new data. And tonight we'll have episode 2 of that special, or at least segments from that. And then Olga and I were going to unpack a whole lot of other details around the intelligence connections of Jeffrey Epstein. It's riveting stuff. I've been knee deep in all of this for the last 24 hours. And I can't believe how many connections there are. There's Ron Wyden was just talking about $1 billion in transactions that JP Morgan had previously disclosed. And a lot of those actually connect to Russia and to the Russian officials that we'll be talking about later. Plus, we'll talk all about Israel's connections there as well. So that's tonight at 7 p.m.
And don't forget to sign up for our authoritarian session 8. The link is out. And that's next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time.
It's number 8 in our series, which is quite something. I can't believe we've done 8 weeks of this. And, we started off and there wasn't such a lot of authoritarianism. And now we're in 8 weeks in and it's like, oh, there's a lot of it around us. It really has. We've seen that creep happening in real time. Thanks very much for being here today on the Trump Tyranny Tracker. We'll see you tonight at 7 and then again tomorrow for another episode of TTT
And you'll be
Live.
back in 28 minutes for
Thank you. for the 5 stack with Dean Blundell in just 28 minutes away. Join us then. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.